Hello and welcome to another video. So today I want to talk about the problem with video games. Now, video games have been a huge part of my life. It's been a very huge part of my life since I was a child. I remember seeing the Nintendo 64 as far back as probably 97, 96 or so. Yeah, around that time, that was when I saw the Nintendo 64 for the first time. It was the first console I ever saw, and I was hooked. Like, I was completely hooked. And since then, like we used to sneak out to the arcade. Like, there was this arcade barbing salon type that it doubled as a barbing salon arcade, and my dad was always the type of person that tell you, cut your hair, I don't want to see your hair grow an inch. So as soon as he starts seeing your hair grow, I'd be like, well, take money, go cut your hair. And then we'd ignore we'd ignore the barbing salon he'd send us to, and would go to, like, where there were games, and we could cut our hair in around 5 minutes or so, and then spend an hour watching people game, because obviously when you pay money to cut your hair, there's really nothing left. And sometimes some of the older kids would be like, come over, come and play, I'll pay for you, it's cool. And that was my initiation into gaming, and since then I have been a lifelong gamer. Anyone who knows me knows that I always create, no matter how choked up or how stressed I am. Like, I always play my games, and not just for me, for a lot of kids too. I don't know if the culture is still the same. Well, I'm no longer a kid, but like in the late 90s and all through like 2000s, like, games were huge. They were like a huge part of basically almost everybody I knew. Secondary school, if you're American, or if you're not living in Nigeria, it's middle school and high school. It's what we call secondary school here. Like, everybody, we had a gaming champion in class. Like, people would basically put bets, and then they'd leave school to go game, like, in the arcade nearby, and then, like, whoever wins comes back to school like the next Monday. Like, it was such a huge deal. Like, games were so cool and games were so fun. But now, I don't know. I don't think it's like, people have told me that, dude, you're no longer enjoying games as much as you used to, because probably you're no longer as young as you used to, or games aren't meant for you. I think that's a weak excuse. And I sat for about several weeks, months, maybe even a year now, thinking about, why is it that games are no longer fun as they used to be. And I have a whole ass list of why games are no longer fun, and I've basically put all of them into this video, which I've titled The Problem with Video Games. So let's get into problem number one. Problem number one with video games today is poor storytelling. Oh god, the storytelling. I'm not saying that they are not good games today. They are very good games today, but the storytelling aspects of the gaming is what got you hooked. Like, I remember playing Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1, the Resident Evil games on the PlayStation 1, like Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas on PlayStation 2. I remember when CJ and Sweet were, when they were betrayed by Big Smoke and Ryder, and I held the controller, and I was almost crying, right? Because, like, after all that we did, the game had a build up. Like, the story was well written and well built up to that point where CJ was kicked out of Los Santos and he had to start over. Like, the storytelling aspect of it was wonderful. But now, today it seems like there's more of an emphasis on getting better graphics than giving a better story. I mean, Rockstar still, at least their Red Dead Redemption games and like GTA 5 are still good, but those are like really, these games are getting to their 10th year now. I cannot really sit down and pick. Maybe Naughty Dog are trying, maybe Naughty Dog, but I cannot really sit down and say that this is a new game that I have seen so far that has captivated me. I think the last one that has is probably The Last of Us 2, I guess, but other than that, gaming doesn't have like that storytelling element anymore. It's gone, and that's sad. Another problem with video games today is that developers, as soon as they notice that a certain game is popular, the game tends to have no ending. And that one is an issue, because for the most part, like, the human experience is that when we've had too much of something, we tend to become disinterested and lose our enthusiasm for it. Like, everything that has a beginning should have an end. Even our very lives that we live, one day we're not going to be alive anymore. There are countless of people who were alive before us, and there are countless of people who will be alive after we're gone. Everything that has a beginning should have an end, but not for video game developers today. The games have no ending. And when you've played the same game over and over and over and over and over again, and they keep adding more extensions, and they keep adding more stuff, and they keep adding more stuff. Eventually you're going to get tired, and you've already done everything that there is to do. You've beaten every level that there is to beat. It's just they keep adding one thing or adding. You're going to get tired, and you're going to get bored of the game. And I think that's one of the many things that happens with the new landscape of gaming that we are in right now. Games have no ends, and developers do not want it to have an end because they do not want to lose their cash cow, and that's a huge problem. There's also poor development. I don't even need to get into that. Cyberpunk 2077. Like, do you know that with all the hype that was generated for Cyberpunk was buggy. Put Cyberpunk to the side. Pro Evolution Soccer, now masquerading as eFootball. Terrible on its release. Terrible game. So much so that they had to this is, I mean, eFootball Mobile now has been more than 6 months extension. They keep pushing the release date back. Like, games are poorly developed. It's just like it's self-explanatory. Like, these games are bad. Games nowadays, even the ones from big companies, are poorly made. They're bad. It's that easy. They're bad, really. And in the old days, when you bought a game, like you bought a game, this was your game. You've bought it. Like, you've bought your game. You buy the pack, like a pack with the CD inside or the cartridge or whatever it is, and yeah, it was your game. You bought the whole experience. In fact, sometimes you could get demos for free to try and entice you to know if you're going to splash out cash on the full game. But basically, when you were buying the game, you knew you were buying the complete game. Nowadays, with the advent of the internet and internet gaming and all that, now companies are selling incomplete games. They don't. In fact, many of them do not even want to complete their games. They make a game halfway and then they rush it to market. And that's also one of the reasons why you see games with plenty of bugs inside, because they start sending patches, bug fixes, patch. But when I'm buying the game, I'm paying for a complete game. I'm paying the full fee. Why are you sending me an incomplete game? It's everywhere now, incomplete games, and they'll tell you, don't worry, we're going to give you a DLC, we're going to give you their hidden levels, and that will take us to the next one anyway. Microtransactions. Oh dear. Now, you don't only have to pay for the game that you are buying. You don't only have to pay for it. That's one. You're also going to have to pay to complete it. There are like other levels. Electronic Arts are the most criminally culpable for this one, but there are also other companies too. But EA, they're usually, it's them. Like, you pay to complete the game, and it's not just even about paying to complete the game. There's also microtransactions now. You want this shiny new skin, you want this shiny new tool, give me money. Revolution Soccer is also one of them. Konami, because it's the way it seems now, they've mostly killed off all their other games to focus on Revolution Soccer, which is now masquerading as eFootball, as I've said earlier. They've mostly killed off all the other games, and now it's Revolution Soccer is basically a cash grab. In fact, the name is no longer Konami, it's now Coinami, because that's all they care about. Players paying money in exchange for coins. It's a money grab at this point. Back in the day, you used to, like, for you to be able to get that skin, you had to play the game. You literally had to play the game to get it. When people came around, when your friends came around and they saw you playing the game, they'd be like, wow, you did that side quest? That side quest was crazy. And there was a sense of pride, because that's what gaming was all about. Like, you had the eye-hand coordination, you had the mental capacity, you had the intelligence and the IQ to beat the game and get that skin. Now people just paying money for it. And in addition to the microtransactions, then there's loot boxes. Oh Lord, I hate loot boxes. I hate them so much. There are very few things I hate in my life, because I feel that hate is such a strong word, but I literally hate loot boxes. I hate them. Once upon a time, in order to be good at a game, you had to learn the game, you had to master it, you had to play it. But now, oh no, don't. Just give us money. That's all. Just give us money, and we'll give you all the experience points, we'll give you all the energy improvements, we'll give you all the strongest shields, we'll give you the best skins. Just give us money. That's all. That's what it's all about now. It's no longer about gaming. Just money. It's a cash grab basically. That's all gaming is now. Like from the DLCs to the microtransactions to the loot boxes, it's all about give me money. And in the midst of all of this, you've got so basically loot boxes are a pin to win model, like so now you've got, in fact, I think most gamers now understand that there are two types of gamers in terms of this whole new landscape that we're in. You've got the free to play guys and you've got the pay to win guys, and this is where something called scripting or dynamic difficulty adjustments came in. Now in the old days, like I think some people are screaming that scripting is new, or that some form of like game adjustment is new. No, it's not actually new. It's not actually new. In racing games, it used to be called rubber banding, where no matter how fast you drive, there's always going to be a car right behind you, no matter how fast, no matter how well you play. And then no matter how badly you drive, there's also going to be a car in front of you to give you the illusion that you can catch up. Like the scripting of then was like to make the game a bit more challenging, a bit more interesting, right? Because if the game is at a certain difficulty and it's too easy for a player, the player might get bored and then just like finish it a few tries and then he's done with it. So the idea was to make the game quite difficult, more challenging, so that the AI, the AI sees the player's skill and then scales the difficulty accordingly. But today, scripting is used for anything else but making the game more challenging. Player versus player games, scripting kicks in. PES is not just PES. Most football games, most player v player games, and they see that when a player has been losing too much, the script kicks in and then it's helping one player against the other one. Like as far as I can tell, that should be a crime because it's match fixing. If in real life people are being arrested for fixing matches, then game companies should be arrested for fixing games too, because it's game fixing, it's match fixing. Because why would you write the code to make someone lose no matter their skill level? It is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Games should not be scripted. And for the most part, the script tends to favor people who spent more. I'm getting pissed off now. The game tends to favor people who spend money. In fact, the more money you tend to spend, the more the game seems to be more favorable to you. And that will take me to the next problem, the capitalism motive. That's all that these companies seem to care about. Like with the is it the parting of ways between Konami and Hideo Kojima, which is a brilliant gaming mind, guy that creates most of the many games that we loved in my childhood, especially what's the name of this game now? I cannot believe that I have forgotten Metal Gear Solid. I love Metal Gear Solid, although it's stealth, and I'm not really a stealth guy, but the game was great, right? That this game was made for players, and he's left, and lots of the gaming developers, like the actual guys behind the games, are leaving these companies because all everybody cares about is money. It's no longer about art. It's no longer about like giving the viewer the experience, the gamer the experience. Because sometimes when you played games like Grand Theft Auto, for example, it wasn't just about you playing it. You were basically playing an interactive movie, and like you'd have sometimes your family members sitting around and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened." Moments like that with a video game, and you all would get so immersed in the story. And sometimes, like, even my mom at times would come over and be like, "Aren't you playing your games?" There was one you were playing the other time that the man did this and the woman did that. I'm like, even my mom can get into video games. Like, that was how good they were. But now everybody just wants to follow a certain model. Like, everybody wants to make games cheaply and then overcharge for it, and then throw in as many microtransactions as they can, and then put in as many loot boxes as they can into the game. It is basically capitalism. Capitalism has gone berserk, and it's running wild in the gaming industry. So now games are not just for players anymore. It's about how executives can gobble up as much money as they can. And that has led to, for me, because I know a lot of the younger generation might disagree because they've probably not seen an era different from the one that we are in, but as far as I can tell, the quality of gaming, apart from a few select titles, has come down. It's not just even about like the quality of gaming has come down. The way gaming is now, like, there is a total complete disregard for the gamers themselves, for the people who play these games, for the people who spend their time and spend their money acquiring these games and playing it. Most of these companies seem to not even care at all. Like, they don't give 2 cents, right? They don't give 2 cents at all about the gamers. It's all about what nonsense do we have now? Put it out in the market, they are going to buy it. They don't know any better. and it's just mostly sad. And you know, apart from that, there's also a new toxic gaming culture. Yes, gaming has always been toxic, but like I said, loud minority. You had that minority that were toxic, that was toxic rather. They still are probably, but majority of gamers. I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of people around the world by just gaming alone. I think I made a lot of friends playing PUBG and Nova Legacy, and it's just like one of the ways that games can connect people from different cultures. I have friends from Algeria, from Belize. I funny enough, I did not even know where Belize was on the map until I met my friend Joe from Belize, and like people from Asia, from different parts of the world. You met these people, and it was fun. But now everybody's toxic, and everybody's just like, you know, it's all about rank, and it's all about stats, and it's all about I've done this that you cannot do, and it's I can't really see people connecting over video games. Like gaming communities now is it's a phallus measuring contest. I've got a bigger one than you. That's basically what everybody's doing. I've got better stats than you. It's just so there's a toxic undercurrent now to gaming that is starting to pick up speed. And then finally, the last one is a lack of competition. You know, once upon a time you had like the gaming landscape was open and wide, and you had like so many companies. You had the big established companies, you had the up and coming, you had the indie gaming companies, and like you saw different types of games with different concepts. But now the bigger companies are starting to eat up the smaller ones. You know, Activision, Electronic Arts, all of them, they are all starting to gobble up the small companies, and then they are making it harder and harder for small companies with brilliant ideas to get into games, to publish games, that they're making it so difficult. And you know, they have so much money, and like they paint the canvas, they cover the whole canvas with their games and their adverts and their hype and all that, and there's really like the little companies cannot really bring their head, you know, up from under the water to survive, to get air so that people can see their games, and most of them are starting to pack up and go under, whilst these big companies are, you know, like pushing their unfinished, you know, poor games into the eyes of, into down, they're shoving it down the throat of the masses, and the masses are swallowing it up. And like there's really no competition with game now. You just have like a few select big companies who own all the other smaller companies, and they're shitting out the same games year after year after year. And for me, gaming is no longer what it used to be. I mean, you saw me like bringing out my consoles over there, like this. That's my holy trinity right there: the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3. I don't own a PlayStation 4 or 5, can't really afford them, and it doesn't really matter. There's still lots of games on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 that I haven't played. And I, more often than not, I find myself going back to play old games, because you go to the arcade and then you see like the new games that are out, and they're not really interesting. They're not. Like you go to your friend's place and they're like, this is the game, and like, you know, you're so hyped for this game and you want to play it, and you know, they will just look at each other and they're like, honestly, like the original Uncharted series for me, still unbeatable. The original Grand Theft Auto series, still unbeatable as well. Like, you know, it's the old games that we keep going back to over and over and over. Like I don't know what we as gamers can do, but probably we should be able to vote with our wallets and our purses and our credit cards and our debit cards that no, we're not going to reward this type of bad behavior from these companies. That's the only way. But the problem is like the gaming community will never be united, because you know, it's all the, like, you know, waving contest. That's all it is. Everybody wants to wave theirs, and you know, you'd come out, especially it's nowhere that this is seen than on Pro Evolution Soccer, eFootball now, where you'd come outside and complain that this game is shafting us, and then you'd see 1,000 people who would rush to Konami's defense and tell you to go play FIFA, or you complain about FIFA and they tell you go play PES. But it is what it is. I'm going to be taking my consoles down now. I had them up for this video. I'm going to be taking them down, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.